bigger pizza pie, that's black wing rolls and lots of spaghetti. And I love meatballs, so you better get ready. Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High, Rocky Mountain High.
Yeah, so it's real casual. Just enjoy yourself. Tell Chris to fuck himself, whatever. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of No Vacancy Colorado with your host, Kip Wilson. And my co-host this evening is old Bama Roll Tide, Chris Baird. How are you, Bama?
I'm doing great, man. This is our first episode at with a beer guy. We're breaking it out. We're covering more ground in Colorado, and we're at a kind of new part of Denver that we haven't been to yet.
We are in an untapped location and an untapped demographic. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. You mentioned we are with a beer guy. We're talking king of the beer guys, Mr. Steve Kurowski. Did I say it right?
Kurowski, yeah, you just about had it.
And I'm from Mississippi, so I butcher everything. And so even the name of the location, we're down here at Baere Brewing on Broadway, 320 Broadway, next to that Dunkin' Donuts, and not a stone's throw from our friends over at Go Fish, where we party with our friend Fat Guy. But what's it called? Steve, we want to thank you so much. You're obviously the marketing director over at the Colorado Brewers Guild, so you're knowledgeable in all ways brews. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's pretty much what takes up most of my brain space.
Bong residue and breweries.
Yeah, well,
that's actually a quote from Out Cold. I can't be that clever. It's Pigpen. But yeah, so we appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Thank you for kind of shedding some light. Like Chris or Bama said, we haven't had a lot of folks in the beer industry, so we figured we'd start at the top and maybe get some tips from you on how to kind of tackle this, I guess, booming industry and, I guess, huge target audience. So thank you again. And I'm
psyched to be here and super happy to have my first cold beer of the day in front of me here at Baere. So
I'll
pretty
second
happy.
that.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Wait, so do you not get to do you get to justify drinking R&D? Does that work? Does that count for you? Do you have a company credit card where you can just go get ripped and be like, oh, look at that, I'm working really hard over here?
Do have a company card. Don't have carte blanche to go get ripped. But yeah, we go to breweries often and visit them, talk to them, drink some beers. That's part of our job for sure. So yeah, first beer of the day at 4:35.
Look at us being
Not so
adults.
bad. Not so bad.
We're being adults
Yeah.
I think that's what adults do. Well, I didn't mean to ask that question first. We like to lead every episode off with the same question. I'm going to let Chris take it from here. Go ahead and rock the world.
So, Steve, are you a transplant or a native?
I'm a native.
You're a native.
Proud
man.
native of Colorado.
Look at that.
Look at the surprises on your faces.
Well, I mean, it's a hit or miss. How many natives have we had on the show?
I think, and we can ask, we have a native on the team, Sam, and that's where this kind of conversation, that's always been the first question.
Right.
And he's been outnumbered astronomically. I mean, it's probably 5 to every 1. So, we do have a little bit of shock and awe, but we'll go ahead and ask you. Obviously, beer is your passion, but what kept you here? Oftentimes you see transplants, but you also see Coloradans try to get the hell away from all of us transplants. What kept you in Colorado?
Well, my job, which I love, first of all, keeps me here. Been in the beer industry for about 19 years. And it's a fantastic place to be, fantastic industry to work in. If you're going to work in craft beer, Colorado is probably one of the top 5 states to do it in. So as long as I'm in beer, there's no reason for me to leave the state. I have family here, a lot of friends, a lot of roots. Be hard to leave here. It would have to be a pretty magical opportunity to go somewhere else and do something. So
Oregon or Washington, other states that are kind of well known in the craft beer. I don't know if Washington is. I just assume the Northwest. But Oregon, there's no way someone's going to pry you away to go be a hipster up there and do it would take a lot, right?
It would take something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. You got the gig. You got
right. It would take something, but I don't know. My phone doesn't ring for people calling me to come and work for them, right? So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But if an opportunity would ever present itself, I would probably weigh it if it was a really good opportunity. But hey, man, I'm super happy where I am, so I'm not going to go looking for change at all.
So with your roots here, where in Colorado are you from exactly?
Yeah, so I was born in Inglewood and grew up in the Littleton area.
Oh, shit. So
Yeah.
this is your hood.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, more or
Sure.
less.
Yeah.
Porter
I grew
or
up.
Swedish?
Am I Polish or Swedish?
No, Porter or Swedish?
Oh, I was at a Swedish hospital.
There you go.
Yeah, you got it right. 1970 I was born.
Whoa.
And my parents still live in the same house. I was brought home from the hospital, so
Hell yeah.
when I go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving, go see them, which is they're only a half hour from here.
Nice.
I go to the house that I've seen for 48 years of my life, so it's really cool to have that sort of consistency with my
Nostalgia.
family and everything here, so it's really special.
Do you ever, okay, so I know obviously the holidays are upon us. Do you stay at the crib with the folks when you're back? You're like, oh, my old room.
Oh
And
no,
like,
they're only a half hour away. So no, I go there, I do my business, and I come back home.
That's
Right?
awesome.
I unfortunately have to stay an entire week. But
Let's not say that. Our parents may be listening. We love our families for those that may be listening.
seriously, can't wait to get home.
That's not true at all. So I've left before, and then as soon as I left Colorado, I was like, oh, I made a really big mistake. I'm going to come right the fuck back. So I was in New Orleans for a little while, and then, like you said, like, why would you want to leave? We're sitting here in, like, it's Neverland or Paradise or whatever you want to call it if you have the Peter Pan syndrome. We don't usually make someone date themselves, so I do apologize for that. We can edit that out if you want.
Okay.
But, so I guess native, skier, snowboarder?
Ex-skier. I've kind of retired from the skiing thing. I was ski bum in Durango for a number of years.
Oh, nice.
And then moving back to the Front Range, all this I-70 bullshit just wasn't for me, man. I retired from traffic, I guess, and not from skiing. And then, so, I don't know, if I live in the mountains someday, I'll probably pick it up again. It's not something I seek to do on a regular basis.
The 4-hour drive will burn you out. Like on 4-hour drive, like coming home. Like, you're like,
Well, I think it's
$180.
I think it's growing up. Like in junior high, we go skiing. We'd wake up at 7:30 in the morning and be at the chairlift at 9 or even 8:30. Like it wasn't the production it is today. And when you had all that, and then now it is what it is. It's just really hard to be okay with it, honestly, right?
Well, you didn't have all those transplants to deal with back then.
those sons of bitches.
The traffic was never really an issue unless there was a major accident when we were young, right? We get on in the Eskimo ski bus at 7:30 in the morning, and we'd be on the chairlift at Loveland by 8:45 every single Saturday.
That's hard to beat, man. And then you spent some time in Durango, so you had Wolf Creek and the dumping of the snow. That is
The most epic
San
days
Juans?
you would ever ask for, I've had at Wolf Creek, for sure. The most epic days I've ever had skiing have happened at Wolf Creek. It's a bit of a haul from Durango. It's still a 2-hour drive, but it was worth it on those big days. If your friends had a 4-wheel drive, which I didn't, but I had friends who did, that's how you got to the top of Wolf Creek on the biggest days, and you had the whole mountain to yourself, and they were totally epic. They were the best.
And you know what they say, and I feel like we can kind of apply 4-wheel drive back in the day. It's very similar to like having a boat. You don't want to be the guy that has the boat, you want to have your best friend that has the boat. So I don't want to have to drive through all that fucking
I would
snow.
love to have had a 4-wheel drive. I was just too broke. I was making like $6 an hour when I lived there. I couldn't afford a 4-wheel drive.
I brought a Jeep out. It was bunk as hell. So now I'm like, shotgun whenever we go up the hill. But I'm more of an Apri guy. The knees have kind of given out on me. So I'm more of I'll hang out on the base of the mountain, have cocktails.
Sure.
I'll go up there and exert energy. I'm a big smoker as well. So my lungs don't mind that I'm not out there exerting myself too terribly much. But okay, so we like to dive into. We're gonna pick your brain, obviously, about all things Colorado. You're probably a loyal listener. This is probably you've probably listened to all 39 episodes before this. I mean, everybody has
For sure.
And if you haven't, don't be shy to go find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and then leave us a review. Rumor has it that if you do leave us a review, we'll find the funniest ones, and we'll shoot you a message and give you free gift cards to some of our favorite breweries around town. But that's a perfect segue for me to go right into some beers. Let's do some beer talk, Chris.
Let's do it. So let's start at the beginning. What was your first job in the beer industry?
Yeah. Well, let me give you a quick run-up to it before I just answer it directly.
Sounds good.
When I was living in Durango, I was working for Yeti. I've had amazing jobs in my professional career, by the way. So living in Durango, I worked at Yeti Cycles, which is a custom mountain bike manufacturer then. They're a much different company now. They're more production. But when I worked there, it was one of the most coveted mountain bike companies in the world. People loved our bikes. We made about 1,000 bikes a year. Long story short, when I was living in Durango, my roommates were a couple of the guys that started Snob Brewing.
I was going to ask you about that with Durango.
Yeah, so got to be, Bill was my roommate, great friends with Dave, and one of the silent partners in Scott at the time was Kyle Karstens, who was the head brewer at the Wynkoop Brewing Company. And Schwinn bought Yeti Cycles back in 97 and then closed the Yeti factory in Durango in 99. Turns out that Wynkoop was looking for a marketing director right about the same time, and my relationship with the guys at Ska and Kyle got me into the interview process with this job at the Wynkoop. So got the job and moved back to Denver and started my beer career then in 1999.
That's awesome. So I was 14. I know like I said, we're not going to date folks here, but I was 14 when you started your career in the game. But I recently, I guess 2 years ago, I snuck down to Durango with a friend of mine. He was picking up like an older Land Rover, and so we took a rental down there, and we camped in Silverton, and then we came down to Durango to pick up the car. And while we were doing it, it was actually a beer fest that was down the main strip of Durango. So he obviously had to drive this new old car home, and I was like, well, I'm about to get blitzed. And so next thing you know, I'm just chugging Ska Blondes, left and right. Obviously, as shout out to the guys here at Baere, they're performing the Great American Pale Ale that I'm having today. But we'll give shout outs to a lot of breweries today, I imagine. That's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door.
Oh, it was a magical time to go work at the Wynkoop. Hickenlooper was still there on a day-to-day basis. He wasn't the mayor of Denver yet. He was still working on the Wynkoop every day. And we had a really awesome staff there. And Lodo wasn't Lodo yet. Yeah, it was Lodo, but it was still a very empty place at night. People would come to the Wynkoop maybe at happy hour, a few bars around downtown Denver happy hour, then they would just scram home. They'd go to nobody lived downtown yet in 99.
Nor in the Highlands, or in a safe neighborhood. There was no Highlands or Low High and things of that nature.
They weren't Low High. They were there, but they were kind of run down. They weren't very nice.
Did that area have the Rocky Stadium in 99? Or
they opened it in 98, I believe, is when they opened it. So that's really what pumped it all up.
96 was
it 96?
Because 93 was the opener. They played in Mile High for a couple of years.
Yeah. But Coors Field didn't come until 3 years later.
Okay,
I think.
so that's where. So
Dante Bichette, come on the podcast.
Wynkoop was in the right spot, but they weren't. When they opened, they weren't. There wasn't even a baseball team yet. It was a really tough part of town when the Wynkoop opened, and they were. That was late 80s, early 90s when the Wynkoop opened. So they were pretty established by the time I got there, but it was still a town that was still trying to keep people around in the evenings, right? So that was our biggest play was, don't go running home, come out and have a beer. And Tuesday night in Lodo, it was dead by 8 o'clock. Now Friday and Saturday night, different story. But during the week, it was a very quiet place. And in fact, we'd park in the Union Station parking lot, which is right across the street. So you see Union Station now, everything in front, that was a parking lot. We got to park there for $3 all day. So the parking lot got ripped out, and they built all the hotel and the other stuff there. And now it's just that big plaza. But it's taken a huge transformation. But it was really awesome to be able to work there back in the day and then see all the change happen and be there on the early times. It was really neat.
So just let's provide a little bit of perspective. When you were working at Wynkoop, just estimate how many breweries were in Denver at that time?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
We've gone through. I've gone through this a few times with some friends, and there's not a record or a book that keeps all the stuff in there. And we go back in our memories, and it's usually while we're drinking beer, and we don't write it down. I wish I fucking would, because I could answer this question easier. But I would say in 99, in Denver proper, with Denver mailing addresses, there was probably maybe 15. Today we have about 80 to 85. And of those 15 back then, half of them, maybe more than half are gone. They did,
oh, wow.
yeah.
They didn't...
So, craft beer wasn't a thing back then, right? Craft beer was only a thing probably the last 8 years.